Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the JP on Comms channel for another Premier League video. The transfer window has, of course, now officially opened. July the 1st was just a matter of days ago, and already by the first week of July, we have already seen some record-breaking transfers in the Premier League so far for this upcoming campaign. So let's take a look in this video at the top 10 most expensive deals of the summer so far. We are going to be taking a look at deals that have been agreed, not deals that have officially been announced. So for example, Josko Gvardiol going to Manchester City is something that's in talks. That one hasn't been agreed yet, so he's not going to be in this list. But for example, Mason Mount, at the time of recording, fee has been agreed and the player has had his medical, etc. That has just not been officially announced by the club yet. So we are going to be including players like that in this video. So let's get straight into things. We're going to start off with the 10th most expensive transfer so far, and that is going to be Alexis McAllister from Brighton to Liverpool for £35 million. Now, even though this one fits into the top 10 most expensive deals so far this window, it's really, for what we're getting, I believe, as a Liverpool fan myself, not an expensive deal at all. Alexis McAllister, of course, a creative midfielder with a good level of output, performing very, very well in a very good Brighton side last season, is of course going to be able to contribute something that Liverpool have lacked in recent seasons with that creativity in midfield on a consistent basis. We've not really had too much output in the midfield. Of course, we saw some bright spells from the likes of Thiago and Curtis Jones actually towards the end of last season. Thiago, however, has had so many injuries that unfortunately I do think his time with the club is probably coming towards an end. But if he can stay fit, I think having him in a midfield alongside Alexis McAllister could prove very, very beneficial. So £35 million on that one. The next most expensive player is probably a surprise to some of you who will be watching this video, and it is Pedro Porro, of course, someone who has featured recently in the Premier League, but on loan. Now he's had a fully completed deal, and this time he's gone again back to Tottenham Hotspur for £39 million. And Pedro Porro, of course, is a right wing back, previously of Manchester City, had quite a few loans around Europe, ended up getting a permanent move to Sporting over in Portugal, and has now completed a permanent transfer to Tottenham. Now, this position, of course, is an area of weakness, you could argue, for Tottenham. I think they have quite a few, and of course they're going to be looking to rebuild under Postecoglou in this coming season, and I think this is a good first step. Porro is someone who can be very competitive in the Premier League, good at getting forward, pretty good at going back as well, so he can contribute, perhaps in a similar style to Kyle Walker did in his Tottenham Hotspur days. Now, 8th number on the list is going to be Julian Timber. Julian Timber is someone who is still in discussions with the club, but it does seem that there has been a fee agreed of around £40 million at the time of recording from Ajax to Arsenal. Now, Julian Timber is someone who, of course, in recent years has been targeted by teams like Manchester United, of course, last season before they opted for Lisandro Martinez instead. But the options that he's going to be able to provide a team like Arsenal in competing for the Premier League title next year is really can't be understated. I mean, look at that Arsenal defence when William Saliba got injured in the kind of latter stages of last season. The team fell apart because they did not have adequate cover. Now, if you've got someone like Julian Timber who's going to be competing for that starting space or going to be that guaranteed backup for them, you know, he's got that quality on a European stage as well to be able to perform in a team as good as Arsenal. So you would imagine that would be a necessary option for them. Can also play at right back as well, where we've seen Ben White feature quite heavily, and Tomiyasu as well when he's not injured. So a good signing for Arsenal, I do believe, if that one does finally get through. Lots of reports saying that one is pretty much all but done. So very good deal for them, in my opinion. Number 7 on the list is going to be James Madison. Now, moving from Leicester to Tottenham again. Tottenham feature in this top 10 list, doing some good business early on in this transfer window under Postecoglou. They are, of course, a team that has been lacking in recent seasons, but I think they're going to get one last year out of Harry Kane, and they're going to have to strengthen that squad around him somehow to try and help him bolster his goal scoring record a little bit more, to try and encourage him to stay longer than the final year of his deal. So with James Madison, he's a very good player, of course, had teams like Newcastle taking a look at him as well. Spurs did just pip him to that one, so I think it's a good deal for them. Obviously got a lot of quality, has featured for England as well over the last year or two in some occasions, so I think James Madison is a very good player. I think he can improve a little bit more. I don't think his ceiling is, the heights of Kevin De Bruyne or Bernardo Silva, someone like that. But he's certainly that kind of next tier down, I think. And I think he's a good addition to this Tottenham Hotspur team. They need more creative influence in midfield. I mean, really, they didn't have too much of that last season. Kind of lost that when Eriksen left quite a while ago. Never really got it back in terms of a big output creative midfielder. So hopefully for them, Madison can be that man. Next person on the list is going to be Christopher Nkunku, of course, signing for Chelsea. This deal was agreed back in January. It is going to go through this summer. £52 million from Leipzig to Chelsea, another player moving from the Bundesliga for quite a big fee, and I think a lot of people are expecting this one to do quite well. However, Chelsea's recent transfer business has not gone too successfully, and of course there are going to be some doubters, but Christopher Nkunku is someone who performs at every position he's been in. I mean, he plays on the left, plays on the right, plays in a more attacking midfield role, plays up front, does really well across all of those positions, and he's done well for France and he's done well for Leipzig. So it's a bit of a no-brainer for me. Chelsea need someone in that forward position. Have lost a player who's going to be featuring a little bit higher up in this video as well to Arsenal. So looking to fill some boots quite early on in this window. And I think, again, it's going to be a pretty good deal for them. May not work out, but, we'll have to see what Poch can do with that one. Now, the next player on the list into the top 5 of this list is going to be Sandro Tonali. Now, I think this could be probably the best deal in this video, and I'll tell you why right now. Moving from AC Milan, Sandro Tonali is a boy who was born and bred in Milan. He grew up watching that team from a young age with his father in the stands, young fan of the club, and Newcastle have managed to lure him away for £55 million. Now, I believe that Newcastle's midfield was probably their biggest area of weakness in the last season, and they still managed to get a very good position in the league indeed. So, Tonali's got Champions League experience, just got to a semi-final with AC Milan in this campaign, and of course moving into a Newcastle team that's going to be exploring European football for the first time in a long time next season. He's going to provide a much needed experience at a very young age, and the ceiling really is high on this one. I mean, the clouds are the limit for a player like Sandro Tonali. There's going to be clubs all over the world that would have been looking at this deal. I mean, clubs like Liverpool, Manchester City. If Man City didn't have an abundance of talent in that position already, you could probably hedge your bets that they would have been in for him. But really, really good deal. I think it's going to add so much more to the Newcastle midfield. I mean, they've already got goals in Callum Wilson, Isaac, and a few other players as well. Their defence is very, very solid too. We saw that last season. So really, midfield was the only place they needed upgrading, and I think they've done that impressively here. So very, very good deal for me of £55 million. And Newcastle are probably going to continue spending very subtly. I think this one's gone a bit under the radar. So we'll probably see a bit more from them in this window as well. Now, on to number 4. And number 4 in the list for £60 million overall as a package is going to be Mickey Mount, as I call him. Moving from Chelsea to Manchester United, £60 million for an attacking midfielder. English, of course, going to have that homegrown quota contribution, which is, of course, important to teams like Manchester United, who can attract a lot of foreign talent. Having good English players or homegrown players in the squad can be very beneficial to them. I think they might have overpaid a little bit. £60 million for a player who's got a year left on his deal at Chelsea and, of course, did not have a good season last year at all, was a little bit over the mark for me. I think in that 45 region, you're probably having a good deal on both sides, but Chelsea have done really good. 55 up front, 5 in add-ons, I believe it was in the end. So that's a good deal for Chelsea. I think is a good deal for Manchester United. I think it is a bit of a question as to how well he's going to succeed, though. I mean, I don't really doubt Erik ten Hag. I think he's a good manager. I think what he's done already at the club is very good, but the position Mason Mount plays in is already kind of filled up in that Manchester United team. Bruno Fernandes has already got that kind of attacking midfield role. They've got players like Christian Eriksen as well. So it is going to be interesting to see how he fits in. Are they going to apply him in a bit more of a wider position? Maybe if Jadon Sancho was to leave, of course, he's been banded around a little bit at the moment, with Spurs taking a look at him in recent weeks. So could be interesting to see how that one goes. I do think that Mason Mount could be a good player. Again, I think he's of a similar ilk to James Madison. I don't really think he's kind of ever going to reach that sort of Kevin De Bruyne stage, but he's definitely going to be able to reach that kind of next step just below that. So I think he could be a very good player for Manchester United if he does succeed quite well early on, because we know that fans can be pretty ruthless. Manchester United fans are no exception to that. So it's going to have to be some success pretty early doors from Mason Mount, in my opinion, but not necessarily a bad deal. Maybe a little overpayment, in my opinion, but that's what it is. So third on the list, into the top three now. We're getting to the slightly more expensive deals here. And Dominic Solanke of Liverpool, now of Liverpool, previously of RB Leipzig, the, I believe, second Leipzig player in this list behind Nkunku, of course, has just moved to Liverpool for 70 million euros. I think that's about 61 million pounds, something like that. So he does take the third spot in this list. Now, again, as a Liverpool fan, I feel quite, happy with this one. I think, again, he's filling a position which is really, really lacked for us in recent years. Injury problems, stuff like that. And, of course, the world really has not a lot of idea about Szoboszlai. I mean, I remember him playing, I believe it was in the Euros a couple of years ago for Hungary. I think he was only about 20 at that point as well. Really, really good for them. One of the better players as well in the under-23s competitions he's featured in too. And whilst playing for Leipzig, has impressed there too. Also played for Salzburg, where he was fantastic at the age of like 19, 22. So really, really good player. But it's that transition from the Bundesliga, having this background of playing for one of the better sides in the league to a very, very competitive league in the Premier League. That transition can be very difficult for players. And of course, we have also got Alexis McAllister in his position too. So it's going to be interesting to see how he is applied in the Liverpool team. We'll have to see how that one goes. It's going to be a lot of money to have spent if that one doesn't go down too well. But I've got faith in Jurgen Klopp to nurture another young talent into a world-class success. So on to number 2 in the list, someone we hinted at earlier on, is going to be Kai Havertz. Now, Kai Havertz has moved from Chelsea to Arsenal, and of course, that deal has been done for £65 million. Now, that is a hell of a lot of money. Chelsea have done really well to recoup a lot of the money they initially put out on Havertz when they initially signed him a while ago from Bayer Leverkusen. So, Havertz, of course, has received a hell of a lot of criticism in recent years from Premier League fans, Premier League pundits, Premier League commentators. Everybody has had a dig at Kai Havertz in recent years. And it has been justified, to be fair. Last season, I thought he was really poor. But if Arsenal and Mikel Arteta can bring out that player that was at Leverkusen, then they're going to have their money's worth for sure. I mean, Arsenal are a team which have lacked depth. I think that was their big downfall last season, especially in forward areas. Gabriel Jesus was injured for a long, long period, and they only really had Eddie Nketiah to try and replace him. So I think getting a player in like Kai Havertz, who could succeed very, very well, could be a kind of pivotal position, trying to bring in players like Bukayo Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard into a Premier League game could work really well. There's a lot of coulds, a lot of hypotheticals in this situation. I think Chelsea have got a good deal. I think Arsenal have overpaid. I think there's been, a lot going on potential in this deal. And I think that's okay, if you're willing to take that risk. Obviously, Arsenal, the Cronkies have shelled out quite a big bit of money for the first time in a while. And, if they can pull it off, Havertz can be a very, very top talent. But I think a lot of it's got to do with mentality of the player. I mean, you're going to have to try and undo a couple of years of abuse, a couple of years of lacking confidence, things like that, and try and turn that around. But it does seem like that is Mikel Arteta's forte at the moment. So, he's turned players like Granit Xhaka from, hated by a lot of Arsenal fans and not really considered an integral part of the team to one of their better players last season. So if he can do it with Xhaka, turn him around like that, he could probably do it with Kai Havertz too. So potentially a very good deal for Arsenal there. And the last deal we're going to be talking about in this one is, of course, a record breaker, the most expensive English player of all time, I do believe, behind Jude Bellingham. Would have had the record for number 1 if Jude hadn't gone to Real Madrid just a couple of weeks ago. But it is going to be the most expensive English transfer into the Premier League. Of course, it's going to be West Ham's record signing. It's going to be Arsenal's record signing. £105 million for Declan Rice. Now, Declan Rice is a top talent. There's no doubt in that. He's a very, very good player indeed, in my opinion. Captain of West Ham, very, very young, very good for England, very good for West Ham. Just won a European competition as well, which probably chucked another £15-20 million on that price tag. But he does provide something that Arsenal need very, very much so. If they're going to be losing Xhaka, if they're going to be losing Thomas Partey as well, someone who does have bouts of inconsistency as well with injuries and just a general lack of performance at times, you know, with Thomas Partey. If you can get someone like Declan Rice in, who by all accounts is a very good player, very good in a holding position, very good at carrying a ball forward, very good at progressing play in what has been a very negative West Ham side in recent years, put him in a team which is more progressive, more on the front foot, more productive in their forward attacks, then I think, again, the sky's the limit with this one. I think he could become one of the best midfielders in the world. I think that he's already on his way there. I think he's certainly one of the better ones in the Premier League, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, he's filling a gap for Arsenal, which is very important to them. And he's going to do well, in my opinion. I don't really see how he fails. He's got a great mindset. He's got that mindset of, you know, he'd rather play for a team like Arsenal or a team like Manchester City. Manchester City were already in for him, but I believe that he was more invested in the project. He wanted to be that player who could make such contribution to a team like Arsenal, to have them competing for Europe's top prizes. So I think that's a fantastic deal for Arsenal. It's a hell of a lot of money, it really is. But if you want the top talent in the world, you've got to pay the top prices. And I think Arsenal have got a good deal for themselves there. Maybe a little bit of overpayment, maybe in that 85 to 90 region. But when you're talking an extra 10 million to these clubs, it really doesn't make a difference, does it? So that is going to be my top 10 Premier League signings so far, or my look over the top 10 Premier League signings so far. A lot of top talent here. We've seen already, just a week into the transfer window actually officially opening, so many top deals. You know, the Premier League is going to be really competitive next season. We've already seen some of the Premier League's biggest spenders continue to spend and develop their squad, and I think that next season, I know everybody says it every year, but I think next season is going to be one of the most competitive we've ever seen across the board. So do stay tuned for more Premier League videos. Do check out some of the non-league content on this channel as well, if you're not too wise as to what else we do on the channel here. Do subscribe, of course, do leave a like down below, and do leave your thoughts on some of the biggest deals going on in the Premier League so far this season. So thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.